Morning, everyone. My name is Sansia Campbell, Public Relations and Events Coordinator here at the Jamaica Business Development Corporation. Welcome to the first of our three-part conversations titled Conversations Across Continents, Cultural Retention, and Mergers in Products and Processes. I will now hand over to our Chief Executive Officer, Ms. Valerie Vieira, who will officially welcome you.
First of all, I apologize for that slight delay, but we know it's going to be an exciting morning. Well, on behalf of Team JBDC, I want to welcome our friends from Nigeria and our friends and family here right in Jamaica to what, as Sansia says, is the first of three conversations that we're going to be having over the next 3 Wednesdays, today plus 2. This is what I would term phase 2 of a very exciting program. And before I begin, I want to pay tribute to our Nigerian volunteers, Pendor Peju, who was with us, he left last year, and Aloha Lukman, who is still with us here, and former High Commissioner Janet Alicia, because we have had a 3 years plus months exciting journey that started with the concept that we have such a strong link with the motherland that we need to see how we can really move forward and develop on those links and on our history. They have been focusing on textile designs and art and craft using different media. And the main thing we have been saying is that while we are transferring traditional technologies and techniques from Nigeria, we want to stimulate the development of Jamaican designs in textiles and art and craft that really tells the story of our culture. We talk about the spirit of our culture, which, you know, in Jamaica is strong, strong, strong. And we want to talk about building on brand Jamaica. And I'm not going to take a lot of time because I don't want to even take up no time because I think we have so much that we will be discussing. But it's really to see how we can enhance the development of a local niche market in textile designs and gift and craft. And we have trained about 50 artisans during this period, and their work is absolutely fantastic. And we have over 1,000 textile designs that have been developed during the period. We have been working in communities. We have been doing workshops at our location. Now, the exciting thing we had done before the pandemic was to actually visit and tour communities in Nigeria to see how it's done and to really demonstrate to our own people here that the industry is not necessarily a big factory and that a lot can be done within communities and the kind of rich history that we can extract from that in our designs. But the pandemic came, and so we're doing it in a creative way by Zoom. And so we're very excited that we have our 2 experts from Nigeria, which Amina will introduce later on. But we also have our great storyteller, and I must say, my younger schoolmate, not classmate, schoolmate, Amina, who's a great storyteller her in her own right. And of course, our other dear friend from Edna Manley, Mrs. Hines Smith. And we're looking forward to a very stimulating conversation, because really what we're looking at, not only designs and so on, but the sustainable development of this niche in the market. And all through the conversations, we're going to be talking about building, enriching the ecosystem to ensure that there's sustainability in the process. So this is a phase 2. And we believe that we are moving along. And I really want to say that it is a cause for excitement within our team and all the artisans that we have been working on during the last 3+ years, 3.5 years. So I'm going to pass over to Sansia, who is going to, she don't need no big introduction, but still, Sansia can introduce Amina And then Amina will take over the story from then and get us really talking together on this absolutely exciting part of the journey that we are embarking on this morning. Ms. Ansel, over to you.
All right, thank you so much, Ms. V. And I trust that everyone is in tune and ready for what will be shared here this morning. Now, as Ms. Vera mentioned, our moderator for this morning is Dr. Amina Blackwood Meeks. And just to tell you a little bit about her, Amina holds a PhD in cultural studies. Her thesis, the oral tradition, displacement, adjustment, replacement, storytelling as a tool for holistic development, is available on the website of the University of the West Indies, Mona. Amina is an award-winning writer, actress, storyteller, founder and artistic director of Entukuma, the Storytelling Foundation of Jamaica. She is also proud of her long history of association with the JBDC, and she actually reminded me this morning that JBDC actually helped her to publish her first book about cricket in 2007 called Outside the Bread Box. So, ladies and gentlemen, please put your virtual hands together and welcome Dr. Amina Blackwood Meeks as she shares with us this morning along with the esteemed panel. Also, just to remind everyone that you can always feel free to drop your questions in the chat. We will facilitate them at the end of the presentations. Over to you, Dr. Blackwood Meeks.
Thank you so very much, Sanchia. Good day, everyone. I can't tell you, it is my absolute delight to be able to participate in this forum, and to be asked to anchor it is just the icing on the cake. We have 3 panelists who are scheduled to speak. I am doing double duty as moderator, and I'm also going to be making my own contribution to the discussion at the end of the other presentations. What I would like to do now is to introduce one of our Nigerian collaborators, because she has another engagement, so we can hear her fully, or as fully as we can, and then allow her to go, and then we can come back and continue the discussion with the other panelists. I want to acknowledge how important it is that we're having this discussion today. Today, we're having the discussion when we are 3 years shy of the close of the International Decade for Peoples of African Descent. How awesome is that in the era of Black Lives Matters and who we are, and that we should no longer be invisible, and how we represent ourselves and are represented in the world. We're also doing this in the United Nations International Year of the Creative Economy for Sustainability. And Ms. V referred to both of those words, the creative economy and sustainability. How do we do what we do in a way that we don't stop and start, but we know that it will continue long after we are not here, something for our children to inherit. I absolutely must acknowledge today, the 16th of June, 1976, for our brothers and sisters of Soweto and the valiant peoples of South Africa, and to name Hector Peterson, who became the face and the image of that demand for freedom and justice led by the young people, the students, 45 years ago. So please allow me a couple seconds. Thank you very much. That gives me an opportunity to introduce Professor Peju Layiwola, an art historian and visual artist from Nigeria. Of course, we know the historical connection between Jamaica and Nigeria. When we are not sure which other parts of West Africa we came from, every Jamaican who know that them come from Africa claim our Nigerian heritage. Professor Peju is listed as a 21st century avant-garde in the book Art Cities of the Future. She's currently a professor of art and art history at the University of Lagos. She has received many awards, both in Nigeria and internationally, including the Distinguished Researchers Award from the Faculty of Arts, the University of Lagos in 2007. Another very critical year. We know that we have marked right here in Jamaica the anniversary of the abolition of the transatlantic trade in Africans. And that leads me into an exploration of the role and the value of memory. Professor Peju is also concerned with history, memory, and cultural appropriation. And don't we know that? I'm sitting here remembering when a famous film star, whom we will not name on this occasion, today is ours, began to wear her hair in cane row or cornrow, as we say sometimes, and it became and her name came in front of the hairstyle, which we know to be ours. So Professor Peju, welcome. Thank you very much for doing this. With your time limited for us today, you have spent wonderful moments in Jamaica, giving of your time and your talent. I want you to begin, please, if you will, about the value of memory and its impact on what we design.
Thank you so much for this great opportunity. Unfortunately, I do not have much time because I have to start a meeting at 4:30. I am very proud, very honored to be here. I'm very excited to be here, and knowing that Alao is also there with you as a product of our University of Lagos here in Nigeria. I want to talk very briefly about arts in terms of the textile, which is actually my area of focus on my last exhibition, which I had in 2019, titled Indigo Reimagined, and the place of history. Nigeria has a very, very rich history of textiles. And if you look at the material culture, as far back as the 9th century AD, in the area called Igbo-Ukwu, during the excavations of bronze sculptures that were found there, they also excavated vast fabrics, showing that fabric weaving had been done as far back as the 9th century AD. And then the 12th century AD, looking at the corpus of the Ife in southwestern Nigeria, you find a lot of figurines, the Ooni of Ife, the paramount ruler of the Yoruba, wearing agbada, which is the traditional garb. And in Benin, at about the 16th century, Benin again is the southern part of Nigeria, the cloth known as Ukponohwa, which is the white cloth, was very well sought after by Europeans who used it as sails for their ships. So we have a very rich history of textiles. And again, my focus was on indigo dyeing. And it also showed that the artists were not just artists who were designing and producing motifs, but they were also scientists. They understood the chemistry of the materials they were working with. They looked at the environment. They were able to source their vegetal matter for tying, like raffia, and also the dyes from around them. And they evolved this very deep technique of dyeing fabrics, cotton with indigo dye. And this is a tradition that has lasted for several centuries and became very popular about the turn of the 20th century, when the British began to export British fabrics, cotton from Manchester. And so they developed the Adire eleko, which is using starch, cassava starch, to make their patterns as a form of resist on cloth. But then what the artists did was to transfer their creative sensibilities that had been cured over the years, over the centuries, dyeing yarns, making hand-spun cotton yarns that were dyed to weave what you know as ashoke or ashoke, which is the hand-woven cloth that's very popular in southwestern Nigeria. So we've come a very long way. In the northern part of Nigeria, in the 15th century, we also had the dye pits of Kano, where indigo dyeing is also done. So between Kano and southwestern Nigeria, We have artists that have developed an indigenous technology, which is open for interrogation by artists, contemporary artists in Nigeria, like myself, who are also beginning to extend that tradition into our own artistic offering. So we have quite a bit. Unfortunately, I cannot show you images at this time because my internet is not very strong, but then I was going to I can also refer you to my website, Layiwola.com, where you can see images of how I've been able to appropriate this very rich tradition and extended it into my artistic production. So in terms of appropriation, we also know that textile has a way of, reaching out to different corners of the world. We are all interwoven. The world is interwoven through textile. We wear our cloth, but we also wear cloth from other places as well. And that's what the artist, the Nigerian-based, the London-based Nigerian artist, Yinka Shonibare, does with his work. What he does is to use Ankara, which are the roller prints that were imitation prints deriving from some kind of, from the Dutch fabrics that were done, the Java prints, which are sold in West Africa. And the cheaper version of it became available in Brixton Market and other parts of Africa, which became almost like what you call African cloth. So in looking at that fabric, he argues that you cannot say, this is a cloth that is done in Dutch, in Java, a Java print, that's moved from Holland, gone to Brixton. It is made locally in Nigeria. It's made in different parts of the world and is sold in the markets as African cloth, even though it has multiple identities. And here he's also interrogating the aspect of identity and the fact that there's multiple identity, multiculturalism, and uses that to complicate the question. So in Nigeria, we have quite a number of other fabrics. Apart from the indigenous ones, we are almost like a dumping ground for textiles from all over the world. So my argument was to bring back the whole technology, which interfaces not just with textile alone, but also with pottery, because the vats were kept in earthenware pots, and these were done by potters, local potters. The process of making the black soap, the alkaline soap for bathing, is also the same process of creating a lye that dissolves the indigo dye. So I was looking at the multifarious dimension of textile, which interfaces other aspects of African art. And that shows the richness that we have. So my time is almost up. It's 4:30, and I'm sorry that I won't be able to stay on much longer. I would have loved to be here throughout the program. But I thank you so much for giving me this opportunity.
Do you have a minute or two to give us, a minute more, just for a follow-up?
Okay, very briefly.
I think it is very important for us to just back up a bit and understand. You mentioned the science behind the work of the textile artists, and that's so important for us to understand that there is a great deal of thought, at least, which goes into what we do. And I would like you just to speak a bit about that before you have to leave, the range of knowledge that goes into what is produced as something that we wear.
One of the things that we do not do is to document some of this indigenous technology. And it's so important that we do that because we're losing a lot of it with social change and with westernization and all of that. So for me as an artist, I think it's very important that we go back to the roots to look at what has been done and see how we can improve on it. But the artists were not just artists who are just concerned about the beauty of the cloth, but they're also concerned about understanding the environment. They were looking at how to preserve the environment as well, using what was available. Now we have a lot of people who are doing textiles with a lot of chemicals, and had the impact of that in the environment. So in terms of indigo dyeing, they understood that they needed to have oxygen, well oxygenated vats. So they used the earthenware pot, which allowed air to pass through the pores of the pots. And this earthenware were done by local potters as well. And they also knew that the indigo dye was also not soluble. So they had to create a lye. And they built a kiln where they could burn cocoa pods and wash the cocoa pods, the ashes of the cocoa pods, into the vats that would now make the dye soluble. And so the cloth could absorb that. That is science. And that should be celebrated. And the fact that it's not just the textile that showed this depth of knowledge about technology, but also pottery, the burnishing of pots, the coloring of pots, the way and manner in which they produce pots without the potter's wheel and the modern technology that we have today is just simply amazing.
I want to thank you very much, Professor Peju, for sharing your time with us and for indulging us in those extra 2 or 3 minutes. I'm so sorry that you have to go. We're going to allow you to go. And then we're going to have to say, we have to link up another time to explore so many additional aspects of those things that you have pointed out. Thank you very much. As we say in Jamaica, you know by now, walk good and good dopey walk with you. It is the spirit that we are discussing. So thank you so very much.
Thank you so much.
Yes. I would like to remind our participants that you are invited to contribute actively to the unfolding of this discussion through posting your questions in the chat, and we will accommodate as many of them as we can. While we await Mama Nikki joining us, I want to go to Mrs. Miriam Hines-Smith, because so much of what Professor Peju said could also impact your work, Miriam, in terms of documentation of what we do. And incidentally, I believe that today the Climate Change Conference of the Caribbean is also taking place. And Professor Peju mentioned working in a way that also preserves the environment. Mrs. Miriam Hines-Smith is a Kingstonian Jamaican. Yes. I laugh because I remember someone saying many years ago that all Kingstonians come from country. We just don't know which country them come from. And we benefit from the fact that they brought into Kingston their country knowledge and country experience, these days sometimes called indigenous knowledge systems. What is it that we know as a result of the way we live and interact with our environment? Mrs. Miriam Hines-Smith received her education at the Edna Manley College of the Visual and Performing Arts, where she attained a diploma in textiles. In 1999, she received her MFA degree from the Winchester School of Art, University of Southampton in the United Kingdom. She holds a postgraduate diploma in industrial textiles applications from l'École des Beaux-Arts, France, and a postgraduate diploma in education from the University of Technology, Jamaica. So we properly understand how it is that all of that combination of training and experience and work has resulted in her occupying her current position as the Dean of the School of Visual Arts at the Edna Manley College of the Visual and Performing Arts. From where you sit, Miriam, my colleague, let me just acknowledge that, my colleague, we work together at the Edna Manley College of the Visual and Performing Arts. What is the importance of documenting our technology and our processes in the work that you do?
Okay. Good morning, everyone, and thank you for that introduction, Dr. Blackwood Meeks. Yes, my colleague indeed. Well, documentation. As you are very much aware, Jamaica is a very oral history kind of environment. We speak about things, we rather tell somebody than write something down. And one of the things that we have not been mindful of and careful with are our practices, our retained practices coming from our ancestors in relation to things that we came with that were part of our practice as repositioned, I would say, younger Africans, yes? And so I was intrigued when Dr. Peju, Dr.
Yes.
Peju spoke to indigo. And one of the things that a lot of our younger Jamaicans are not cognizant of is that Jamaica actually was a leading exporter of indigo in Jamaica, coming out of Jamaica, and of such, that came out of the retentions that came with us and the capitalization on such through agriculture. Yes, it wasn't just sugar that was king in the day. It was also cotton. And if individuals would not be mindful, we would lose the understanding too that Jamaica produces and has the capacity to produce the best cotton globally. And that is through our product we call Sea Island cotton. It rivals Egyptian cotton. Yes, there have been several attempts to resuscitate this industry. And part of the problem is that our documentation is lacking in so many ways. We need to recognize the importance of this, and it is something which we try to embed in our students, even here at the School of Visual Arts, that your process, there's nothing called a happy accident. And if you don't recall what you did, then you can't repeat it to make it your own. And so in being able to document what is ours or what we have retained historically, we will lose out on understanding the significance of these explorations, particularly in textiles, that forms and shapes our identity as people of Afro descent. Now, I can tell you that as a textilian, a fiber artist, it is particularly important when our students explore through dyes, through printing, through applique, and the introduction of technology in the process, that understanding your next steps, understanding your material, understanding their reaction to each other, understanding too the need to be more cognizant of our carbon footprint in this day and age, that the diverse explorations that students are exposed to and that we have throughout history must be so documented so that there is something to build on. We have to build on. We can't be repeating. Sustainability doesn't happen when you keep repeating the same things without moving forward with the knowledge that you already have at your disposal. So for me, it is absolutely necessary and a part of any designer's way of being to ensure that documentation is core to their process.
Thank you, Miriam. I want to explore two aspects before we move on. You know, some of us don't even know what indigo is and what makes it so important. And then what is this thing called Sea Island cotton? And did we ever have a cotton industry? Can you speak to those two things in terms of the broken patterns and the loss of memory? Because you also said, unless we know what we did, then we lack some of the capacity to repeat it. And part of that inability to repeat is the brokenness of the way we have engaged in our various practices. So what, pray tell, is indigo? And where did the Sea Island cotton industry go?
Okay, so I'll start with the latter first. The Sea Island cotton industry started back in the similar period to our sugar plantation history. And I think one of the debilitating component to the resuscitating and maintenance of said history is the kinship it has with its genesis of coming out of slavery. We tend to have a repulsion to anything that echoes and carries that word, or I wouldn't want it, or stigma or portion of our history. And so in as much as it is something that is viable, you find that there are less and less individual, in as much as we have been given in up to 2018, we got $11 million from the Japanese to resuscitate. Prior to that, 2014, 2015, we got 8.5 from the Chinese to invest. But, and so what we are not recognizing is that individuals external to us recognize the value of what we have, what the space affords us. Yes, there is something about our soil type, our climatic positioning, and our historical know-how that we are still yet to come to terms with and maximize. Yes, it is, there are things that we can understand as it relates to slavery, but then too, we need to be very forward thinking as a people to really unshackle some of the baggage we carry and to move on capitalizing what we have at our disposal. Now, in relation to indigo, it's a shrub-bearing plant that produces little seeds, little balls that when you process it, it produces a beautiful blue. It carries you through all shades of blue, midnight blue. It was prevalent in St. Thomas. There were farms in Spanish Down, St. Catherine area, and other spaces, but St. Thomas was the core place. And if you actually visit certain sites, you can see remnants of where the vats were constructed. And I always have these anecdotal stories to tell my students that on the plantation, one of the things that processes indigo is a substance called urea. Now, anybody who did basic level biology will understand that urea is found in our urine. And so this was an aspect, and it's documented, where this is collected from the huts of our ancestors to use in the processing of indigo. And I thought it was very ironic because here it was, a fabric that was being produced on the backs of slaves being worn on as the most opulent adornment for our English overlords. So I thought that was particularly ironic. And history has it documented, not that it is overly publicized, but to tell you the beauty of what comes out of that cloth is extraordinary. And the memory it carries from the places of origin is something that I know even now is being resuscitated. And I will venture to speak of Lucille Junquier, a textiles researcher and artist who is really pushing the boundaries to bring that back to the fore as a component to contribute to the sustainability of our textiles and fiber arts industry.
Mm-hmm. That's rich. That's very rich information, Miriam. And what comes to my mind is education, education, education.
Absolutely.
We've been so burdened, and sometimes rightly so, by the history and the experience of enslavement that sometimes we forget that we brought the information, that we came with the technology. And so it isn't always that something was thrust upon us, but we had that which could be exploited for the economic well-being and welfare of others. I wonder if you could speak to the extent to which at the School of Visual Arts, particularly in the area that we are discussing now, that information is dispensed to the students so that we can have an understanding of what it is we see in the wider society as the influence of the Edna Manley College of the Visual and Performing Arts on that which we wear.
Okay, so this within the textiles, within the fashion, textiles, and fiber arts department, we have at the helm a very strident artist herself, researcher and designer, Miss Laura Lee Jones. It's a very beautiful team of lecturers, and each individual comes with different aspects that they contribute. We also have individuals who are still contributing, who were at the beginning, the genesis of the textiles and fiber arts department, such as Gillian Becker. We have younger contemporaries such as Katrina Coombs, Robert Hall in fashion, and of course, we have Grace Kelly, who, when you bring that team together, what we provide for the students is the underpinning history. So across the curriculum, we have students exposed to African art history, Latin American art history. Of course, they understand how all that is contextualized within Western art history frame. And it is for them to find their footing and to extrapolate from that the language of their own identity through fiber and fabric, through the deconstruction, the reconstruction, the imprinting, the layering of fabric to really unearth their own identity, because you find people are searching for self in a lot of ways, and as well as trying to identify who we are as a people and to move away from some adaptation of things such as if you take, for example, the Madras fabric, which has gone through several cycles of exploitation and imposition, which at this point, what is being fostered at the JBDC right now, wherein there's a development of an image bank. We're looking at also here in studio where students can explore what we have as signifiers of Jamaica to create their own language of textiles. Yes, so it is referencing the traditional, layering that with your understanding, bringing self to the fore and creating something that is so hybrid that it speaks your own language. Yeah, so what I can say is that we forever ensure that what information is being shared, it has the historical underpinning, it carries a technical forte, and it positions them to work in a contemporary context, which is no.
May I ask you about the linkages that this school has been able to establish with other elements, other areas of the wider Jamaican society? I want to speak specifically of the fashion industry within the context of identity. Okay. That very often the people who are so dynamic in dressing us up or dressing us down are people who are also marginalized, but their work is just so dynamic and ever-changing. Have you been able to create any linkages with some of these designers, I'm not naming any at the moment, who may be able or have been able or contemplated to be able to interact with the students in situ as lecturers, as lecturer demonstrators, so that what comes out of the graduates, the textilians, I love that word, thank you for teaching it to me, will also reflect the dynamic nature of our evolving yet stable identity?
Okay, so we have we have individuals, as Mrs. Vera introduced. We have with us Dr. Alau, who is from Nigeria, who has been doing several workshops with our students over a year now, actually. And what that conversation brings to the table is to start allowing students not to start really, but to continue the exploration of their own hand and identity through design. Now, in terms of industry, we have had we've had a long history of individuals who have invested in our students and have provided them with the opportunity to intern. I remember my own experience interning as a third-year student with Patricia Evelyn, who, when at the time she had an extremely thriving textiles production company going, and that did very well. And so what you find now, we have Carrie Woman, who works with our students in the fashion department. We had the late Barry Moncrief, who would mentor students and would also be one of our externals. So we have, oh, how can I forget? There is, again, through, his name escapes me right now. I'm just going too fast, but I will come back to him. We have individuals in the industry, and we had Norma Soas back in the days. We still have a number of individuals who are working with our students. But the thing about it is now our students have become so savvy that entrepreneurship is what they're looking for. They want to be able to create their own hand in the mix. They want to be able to put forward their own ideas, which right now there are several of them who are making very good strides in the industry, and they're really being nurtured. And so you find that the developing stage of working with an established designer is part and parcel of them getting to the granular level of the industry. But the truth is, it is really advantageous for them within our sector to look at niche industry. So we have students who may not have made textiles their major, but would have had exposure to textiles. So we have the brand line Heavy Manners. I'm sure you're particularly familiar with it, which that developed out of her interrogation of Jamaican politics and her interpretation of that into print for textiles. And she is exploring, oh, Christina Godfrey, she's exploring everything and all things accessory, and is making quite beautiful strides in the industry in that regard.
You mentioned the students rightfully wanting to put their own hand in the mix. To what extent does that preclude continuity, building on the legacy of some of the persons you've mentioned, such as Norma Soares? Back in the day, you weren't dressed unless you had a piece of Norma Soares. Yes, and of course, Barry Moncrief.
Yes, Barry Moncrief.
To what extent are they including or encouraged to include those foundations in putting their own hand in the mix?
Okay, so recognizing the kind of discipline and the kind of presentation of these designers that we have come to regard and recognize as outstanding, the approach to their own work, their own underpinning, their own philosophy. These individuals are people that we present to them within our curriculum as a part of our syllabus, so that they recognize that in as much as there's a little bit, there probably is a quiet now, or they may not seem to be able to understand the history of it, we have to bring it forward. So we bring those individuals into their present space at each opportunity.
A couple questions that we might accommodate now, please, Miriam. Someone wants to know, in the way you mentioned that indigo used to be produced in St. Thomas. I think you also said in Spanish Town. Maybe you said St. Catherine, right? St. Catherine, Spanish Town. You said St. Catherine. So that's one. Are we also able to say where cotton was produced, and is it still produced anywhere? And the second question is, all of these wonderful things that you are describing, where are they available for sale?
Okay. All right. Now, as we understand, we are in a space of e-commerce. We are in a space where within the Edna Manley College, recognizing this very need, we had commenced what is known as Art Stock to Many. And that was the purpose of Art Stock, to provide for students and graduates an opportunity to showcase their work and to understand how they fit within a commercial retail space. So that is something that is to be revisited and re-energized to provide them with that outlet, because what we find too is that people are very tactile when it comes to textiles. They want to see, they want to touch, they want to feel it. And so in as much as there are e-spaces, the need for retail outlet, maybe in limited areas, is still necessary. So we also have individuals who have partnered with other entities, such as Comet Revisited, to carry their designs or to design for them. So the layers of the industries are fed. You have those who can be designers, and those in terms of the creation of new textiles, and those who use it in the design application for fashion. So it's a multi-tiered, multi-layered approach. And sometimes it's best when students are able to specialize in an area, form partnerships, build network to actually create something meaningful and sustainable.
Can I ask you something very personal? Can we see your beautiful necklace? Is that one of ours? I know we have at least one student who works in jewelry who has designs of that nature on the market.
Right. So this is not hers, but
okay,
just as I have another of hers. So this one is a lot more color going on. And so, yes, I chose to wear this one this morning, but I wore it in homage to our other participants who were here with us from Nigeria. So yes.
Okay. All right. Thank you very much. Let me do this. You mentioned Madras.
Yes.
And some years ago, there was a little controversy around the Madras.
Uh-huh.
And this might be a place that I can make my intervention, and then we can come back to the broader story and take some more questions and comments. Let me just advise our participants that Mama Nike is having some internet challenges. And so the JBDC people who always think on their feet are at this very moment engaging a replacement, another discussant. So I'd like to share this kind of story, kind of journal entry. And at the end, I will tell you what the title of it is. Every Jamaican of a certain generation, with the emphasis on certain, meaning certain of self, or certain that you have different clothes for different occasions. These come with certain labels: house clothes, yard clothes, judging clothes, sleeping clothes, school clothes, church clothes, good clothes, going out clothes, and tear up clothes. Nowadays, you could add tear up clothes or mad people clothes. Let us go back a little. In 2017, my friend, Little Miss Jingbang, was up into Mexico. According to the occasion, she had filled her suitcase with a variety of outfits made from the bandana, something she proudly wears as a mark of her Jamaican smartiness when she up into foreign anywhere. At a certain stage in that Mexico trip, she was possessed of an urge to fling out every type, shape, and color of Madras, another name for bandana, as well as a district up in St. Anne that appears to have had some Indian influence somewhere in its evolution. She wanted to fling out this Madras, fearing that she was cloaked in colonialism, representing a post-colonial Jamaica that knows that not only is it the cultural mecca of the world, but it is 1 square mile shy of being the next superpower. She was not wearing any tear up jeans, although she don't hear no brouhaha about how people are dressed like, say, imperialism and modernity turn them head upside down and make them start to dress like mad people. But she had another set of colors. And when she put them on, she realized that she don't know why Marcus Garvey did choose them color there: red, green, and black. And it looked like you have to know the history of something before you put it on. She's not putting on no jeans and t-shirt that don't know if them is French or American. Then she decided that she might as well wear what she most often wear, and she take out her little African print dress. It marked Java print, and she cannot find Java on no map of Africa. Furthermore, as far as she knows, not every African print dress have on print. Some just have the pattern embedded into the thread, and people don't believe, say, don't care where you come from, is African. Some people say she must be rich, for clothes that is genuine African cost more than our month's hustling, plus the embroidery alone, so it is done by hand and not machine, costs an arm and 2 legs. One time, she had to tell somebody that is exactly what was chopped off some women on the plantation as part of the process of deculturation and as punishment for wanting to dress like yourself every day, and not just when you're going to pose up for a special occasion like you're going to a costume party. As to the rest of what she would have put on, the goal cost enough people blood, sweat, and tears. She never hear of no animal named Gucci or such the likes, but enough elephant and rhinoceros dep on people foot as shoes, them head as hat, over them shoulder as handbag, around them neck and finger as jewelry, bearing names that the animals would not recognize. Suppose them did live to tell the tales. Under normal circumstances, When faced with similar troubling questions, she would have eat liquor food to console herself. And you know Jamaica have plenty food designed explicitly for consolation. You tell your mother a long tale of woe, and she'll listen wordlessly for 3 hours till you finish. And her first response is, you want liquor food? But when she think on the breadfruit, it blighted. The flower not grow where she come from. The saltfish neither. The cow, the goat, the curry are all foreigners. Not one come with a visa or quarantine protocols. Them all get permission to roam free. She want cuss off the burger and greasy chicken and foreign fruits, what put our whole village out of work. As to the people them who cry down our granny things, what she down at the market a hustle and go buy up things in a tin and box with ingredients that she cannot even pronounce, which part of her identity is that? So she reached for a bar of chocolate, and then she remember Pickney walk out them soul case in a sweatshop for the chocolate where she loved on a continent that she has never visited. She can't even drink and drunk, for the Jamaican beer don't make here again. Suppose she could have drawn all of that on a piece of paper and wrap up herself from head to toe and take the people them stage. And when them ask her the title of her story, she say, a cloth of a dilemma. Then the translator, what them assigned to her, would have said him don't have no equivalent phrase in Mexico. She would be forced to ask, but do you have an equivalent spirit? For our clothes don't really have words, it have history. That little girl who classed the bandana as dishcloth must hate for her plate. For in a Jamaica, your plate towel is a fancy thing with pride of place in your kitchen. And same way it cover food to feed your body, it cover your body to feed your spirit when you feel like jump revival in a lonely church on Pocomania Day. And right there she decide that anything she put on for that show that night, bandana or African print or red, green, and black, or red, black, and gold, or when she take that stage, she lego a story for the whole world know say. When she said there is a cloth of a dilemma down in a Jamaica, them will feel and know what stop her from falling down. Spirit in me. Spirit in me. Spirit in me. Spirit in me. You know, I'm feeling nice with my little self. Yes, so I wonder if we could explore some of the elements of what was raised in that, Miriam, or any other participant in the room, while we give Dr. Mama Nikki a chance to settle down. She has just been able to join us. So let me do that by way of sharing some of the comments in the chat. Is that okay with you, Miriam? The cotton industry that Miriam wishes to resuscitate. You want to know, Miriam, you are being accused. Would this not counteract sustainability and carbon footprint in terms of labor costs and natural resources? Do you want to take that? There are several more. Please unmute yourself.
My apologies. I was not wanting to disturb your beautiful presentation a while ago. Okay, so that question, the evolution of manufacturing in the cotton industry are light years ahead of what we have. And I think one of the things that we need to recognize is the collaboration with entities that are able to reduce the carbon footprint of cotton production. Yeah. Cotton is, if we also too need to be able to have a sustained supply to our local textile industry. Right now, what we have to work with, Jamaicans are very ingenious, and we do a lot of turn your hand make fashion with what we get as seconds and gray goods. Yeah. But the truth is, we need to also feed home first, and the artisan will require material that they can fashion at will. So if it is that we have investors who are seeing this as something we can do, there's something there that we should look at, and to really determine how we deal with the historical baggage, because we can't put ourselves in a hole that we cannot come out of and live and breathe. And so that is what we do to history when we mismanage what history is and not free how we process those opportunities. So I do believe there's room for its resuscitation, because like I said, you know when something is good when everybody else is looking at it and saying it's good, and you who are sitting on it can't see that it is good. Yeah. So there needs to be that kind of a conversation to ensure that we also benefit from what comes out of the re-energizing of said industry.
Allow me to take just one other section. It was a multi-part
yes, a three-part question.
But the section that poses a counterpoint to reviving the cotton industry is looking at why don't we put those resources towards the development of the marijuana industry, where the cloth can be made sustainable, and it is being suggested here is actually a stronger material than cotton. Your comment on that, please?
No, fabulous question. The cotton, the fabric obtained from the marijuana fiber, is beautiful, but I can tell you it also goes through quite the same process as cotton. The retting and the carding off the fibers within the stem. It does require a certain level of process. Now, the thing about it is marijuana will fare and can fare evenly as cotton. They do give you different handles. They do give you different finish. And so therefore, if you're talking about an industry, I don't think as we think of food that you're going to eat ackee every day. Even though it's our national food, you're going to want something that provides a versatility. They both take dyes beautifully, but they also respond differently. And so there is room to play, and this is how you develop a space. If there's no competition, then we get the same thing every day, and sometimes with diminishing returns. So I do believe actually, what am I now? Over 20 years ago, I actually, with a friend of mine, approached an established printing house who had the wherewithal to start on a micro development of marijuana experimentation. And the aghast and perplexity that I was met with left me quite befuddled, because of course you just realized that within less than the last decade, the acceptance of marijuana, even as a medicinal plant from which we can extract, is only just coming into acceptance in our own space. Australia was way ahead of us. England, they're doing it way ahead of us. They have it all wrapped up. So why again are we still sitting on things that everybody else sees the value to, except us, and it's right under our noses?
We're going to come back to that, Miriam, because one of I hear many things coming out of that exchange, and one of the things I hear coming is that when we talk about textile, the textile industry and identity, it doesn't always mean that we stamp the breadfruit on a piece of cloth or stamp the ackee. And I'm recalling the beautiful ackees that used to be embroidered on the top of that national outfit when the bandana first came out as the national outfit. We will come back to that. But I'm hearing that it doesn't have to be, you remember yours, it doesn't have to be stamped on it like that. It could also be fabric that we produce with our own resources and technology.
Exactly.
So we will come back to that. Mama Nike is presently in the house, and with your permission, I'd like to welcome her now and invite her to make her contribution. So good day, Mama Nike. Dr. Nike Okundaye, also known as Chief Nike and simply Mama Nike,
Good day.
is one of the most central figures. I beg your pardon? May I continue? I'm hearing another voice.
Sorry, continue.
Thank
Okay,
God.
good afternoon. Good evening. We cannot hear you. Can you hear me? I cannot hear them. I cannot hear them.
They can hear you.
Hello?
Amina, you need to unmute.
Yes, I'm now unmuted. So the computer did something I had not instructed it to do. So let me start over. Indulge me, please. Mama Nike, I just want to acknowledge you that you are hearing us and that we can hear you. So I'm going to say greetings. Can you just respond by saying greetings for me? Greetings, Mama Nike.
Greetings, my sister.
Wonderful. Now we're cooking. Now we're cooking. Right. And we were just being so happy to greet you as Mama Nike and to celebrate you as one of the most central figures in African arts and craft, and to revel in the fact that you are a top artist and gallerist and designer of Batik and Adire. I think that's how we say it, that you have devoted your life's work to the revival of traditional art practices and the support of women in the crafts industry. We're very, very happy to have you. And if you would allow us, I want to begin by focusing on those two things, the revival. One of the things we discussed earlier when you were not able to join us was the importance of memory and the importance of continuity in what we do. And central to that would be how we document our work. And here you are concerned with revival. Does that indicate that we have lost touch with something that we need to relearn?
Yes, my sister, thank you. Actually, our textile is the very close thing to your skin is the textile. And textile in Nigeria is the people. So our textile industry is dying off because many people, they don't want to go back to farm the cotton. So the way they are importing from us before, now we are exporting cotton out before in Nigeria, but now we are importing cotton from other countries. So our own is to continue. That is why the young generation are the leader of tomorrow in Nigeria. We have 65% younger generation in Nigeria, while it's only 35% older people. And my own is to pass the knowledge, the way we work, the way we eat, the way we do the natural indigo dye, the way we apply our food is organic. You take something from the earth, put it back into the earth without any chemical. So whatever somebody grow is what you reap. And that is, we are growing a seed by passing the knowledge to the younger generation. And I'm happy, I thank the organizer for giving me opportunity to just talk about just simple silkworm, which is some of the silk we use in Nigeria. The silkworm actually grow on Adire tree. And this Adire tree, you can find them in Benin City, Calabar, Port Harcourt. But the silkworm itself that is producing this silk are no more to be found because they have used them to cook soup. And they believe it's very fertile. So a lot of the people who hunt for the silkworm, they are now, there is no more silkworm. And the silk we are using in Nigeria before is organic. Now we have to import silk to Nigeria to do our textile. So what we are trying to do is to grow that Adire tree back, which the silk love to live on, and also to try to pass this knowledge to the younger generation. So the younger generation can write a book on textile and pass it on like a curriculum into the schools. So people will be able to read about their craft, about their own direct textile in Nigeria. I thank you people for giving me opportunity just to say a word or two. The word we call Adire is the name of the textile in Nigeria. Adi, Are, we do it and we dye it. The vegetable dye called indigo in Nigeria is called Elu. And this Elu is medicinal. They use it to actually use to color the cake, beans cake in Nigeria, which is called Ekuru, Alaro. Then they also use it to cure the fibroids. They use it, the same water coming from this indigo, when they pound it and squeeze it, they use it to cure the cancer of the liver. So everything on indigo is medicinal. Then the food, our local food, which is cassava, that everybody grow. So we squeeze the poison of the cassava out before we turn it to lafun, because some of the cassava have a bit of poison. So people don't eat it straight away, but you soak it in the water. You squeeze that water out by pressing it with the stone, put it in a sack, press it out, press all that water out. And then when you turn it to gari or lafun, people can soak it and they survive. So part of that lafun, which is out of cassava, is what we are using to paint on our textile. Then we use the feather from the pigeon, from the chicken, left side, make a certain design. And the right hand of the chicken's feather also make another design. So all these are the ways of doing our textile. Then this will take almost 7 to 10 days. After that, we now put it inside the indigo. We have to outline the indigo with ashes water from the cocoa skin, cocoa pod, because there is no chemical. Even you cannot use petrol to light the fire. You have to put ordinary firewood fire to light the ashes skin. So after you filter this water, 80 liters of water, you will from, I will just say the cocoa skin and the cocoa pod ash, you will filter almost 1/4 of a ton of ashes before you can get 80 liters of water. And this 80 liters of water, you are going to pour it in a pot. Put this vegetable indigo dye, which is called Elu, inside the pot. The sun has something to do with it. We have to leave it outside. So the sun will heat it. Every morning you have to stir it 3 hours. So then the 7th day, the dye will be coming out and foaming. So you know the dye is ready to take the fabric. And this fabric, as I told you, the cotton is grow in Nigeria. You remove the seed, you put it on the spindle, then you put it on the women's loom or men's loom. Then you now turn it to cotton. You turn it to 100% cotton. from the loom, then you start to work. So all these are dying off, and we will need the younger people to please help us write a book. I don't go to school, but we only have few people who still have the knowledge on this textile. Write a book on it. Pass the knowledge to the youngest children in the school at the age of 6, so they can know how the textile of their country is done. Thank you for allowing me to speak my mind, which I'm so happy to meet all my sisters, all my relations, which we never met face to face, but thanks to the media and this of
Mama
Zoom.
Nike, we're going to give you an opportunity to speak your mind some more. There are 3 very important elements for me in your opening presentation. One is what kind of ecosystem is required for supporting the textile industry as we are having the vision of it now. And I was just absolutely fascinated at your outline about how not one single aspect of anything is wasted. That's the first observation I want to make. The second observation I want to make is about the way in which changing lifestyles affect the resources that are available to us to do the work in the traditional way. And you gave the example of the silkworm, which is now being used to cook soup and not just exclusively for the textile industry. And the third, it seems to me, very critical aspect of that is the impact of globalization, that we export the things that we might need because we need to earn a certain level of money, but we import the things that we could produce ourselves, which then takes away the money that we need as part of the resources. And I am reminded that not so long ago, Oxfam did a presentation about the absence of traditional wear in South Africa. And it was because charity organizations, through globalization, would send clothes from the West, sometimes secondhand clothes, sometimes worn clothes, but they would be so much cheaper, and the cost made it so much more attractive for us to be wearing Western secondhand clothes that it impacted our production of indigenous garments. I don't know which of those you want to take, or all of those. Let us know. Globalization, change in lifestyle, and the ecosystem that supports our textile industry.
I think the system that support our industry will be good, because we need more. We have been pleading to the government in Nigeria to please reopen our textile industry in Nigeria. I know the government can do it. I know the farmer can earn money by going back to the farm to be farming cotton. I know we can make enough indigo in Nigeria. We have our fertile land. Indigo grow like bougainvillea. They grow just like wild. Any way the ecosystem can support it, we will be happy and honored.
I'm going to take away from that policy at the highest level, the way we use our land. So there is a critical role for our Ministry of Agriculture, and then how we encourage and empower our farmers to be part of this vision that we're having. Thank you very much. Not letting you go, because people have been admiring your necklace and the head wrap which you removed. And so I want to invite you, please, to share with us the importance of what we wear and how we wear it in saying who we are, identity issues, status in our communities, and so on.
Well, I thank you. You know, our textile, as we wear our boo-boos, this textile I'm wearing, most of these are from the waste, turning waste to wealth, turning trash to treasure. These are pure water. We call it plastic. The one that they throw away, we pick them by the ocean and wash them and clean them and take it to the factory that is turning them to beads. And that is how I make these beads. And the head tie I have on my head is some of my Adire, which is done. Then I use the waste to decorate it, to use it as a crown. Every woman in Africa is the queen of their husband. And our head tie is our crown. And anywhere you go, once you braid your hair very well, you are wearing your crown. And then many people who cannot braid hair, so maybe that is why we wear the gele, which is called gele gala. And even Professor Wale Soyinka, she called it the first lady of gele gala in Nigeria. And that makes me happy because I went to Napoli and I went to teach the head tie. The mayor in Nigeria, men wear head tie in those days. But the mayor is wearing head tie, saying this is the beauty of our crown in Nigeria. You can see part 1, part 2, how we put it on the younger people, for them to appreciate their country, that they all have a crown. They don't need to wait for the Queen Elizabeth to put the crown before they can put their own crown. So this is our own crown. Thank you, my sister.
The possibilities are endless, Miriam, and persons are asking, how can we make this profitable for our young people? I'm throwing that at you from the Edna Manley College of the Visual and Performing Arts, Entrepreneurship, Economic Sustainability.
Yes, 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 and yes. So I don't know if you will recall, a few years ago, we embarked on a project with Sandals Foundation for that very same thing, where we looked at sustainability through upcycling, we called it, of discarded materials, etc. And we ran for a few years a training, working with underserved communities, this very idea of utilizing waste, etc., particularly looking at sea glass, for the making of jewelry, and that went off very well. And so having done these things, we recognize that these are things that can be expanded on and sustained. And so with training, and the thing about it is the JBSDC reminds me of what the Craft Council is to the British space, where individuals are supported and given even within the Edna Manley space. So when we think of having something like an incubator, this is exactly what we're thinking. How can we, for individuals who may not want to take on, and even those in the degree program, the associates program, these are tenets and components that any creative must carry. You have to look at your environment and see how you impact that with what you create and what you can create from what you're impacted by in your space. So we had the Trash to Bling. We had COVID has sort of set us aside, and we had coming out of our program the alternative fashion show. Now that is something that we're going to be coming back with hard and fast after COVID, because that was where we gave students the opportunity to, again, not use material that are store-bought, etc., to create. And these are things that we must nurture, because there are elements within it that are viable, but very viable. And so the economies and scaling of projects is important for students to really see and understand that if you can really commit to something and you understand why you're doing what you're doing, it might take a little while, but there are ends and roads into industry that can be profitable.
And you read my mind when you said it can take a little while. How much time do we need, for example, to collect? I'm going to use plastic bottles.
All right.
I know you said sea glass. And how much do I need to make a necklace or to make a shirt or to make a hat? And are those things, the element of time and sourcing the material, deterrence to this generation? I'm being very respectful. I'm just saying what I have observed. Who want it? No, not waiting, as long as my grandmother did wait.
And and therein lies aspects of the dilemma, in that ready cash right now is a Fed mentality that we really need to try and I would say, earth to dig it out, to kind of get it out of our students, our young people in general. Students who come into the Edna Manley College, they understand that things are not, there's no overnight wonder. And so you will find that those who go on to do their creative endeavors, working with things that are from upcycled material, repurposed garments, etc., they do thrive. And so it is to really foster that repeatedly. It's really kind of drumming and inculcating that time and patience through process in our students. And there's some that it will stick to. I won't say we'll get everybody, we don't. And those who it stick to, you find that JBDC can tell you that they're now mentoring them, they're now walking them through the branding processes, etc. Which for us, one of the things we have on our mandate is to have the facilitation, the space to facilitate them in an incubator so they can still get oversight at reduced costs, etc. Because, you know, to set up a business in any sort, whether you're upcycling or repurposing, it does take space and time and investment. So if things can be of such that we have that incubator space, continue to partner with sustainability, and it has to be that we engender them and understand how to make things profitable, what it's going to take for them to make things sustainable, and how viable are some of these ideas that they come up with. So yes, it's a multifaceted reshaping of the thinking of individuals that sees themselves within this sector and see this as a way for them to gain an income.
Mm-hmm. I want to invite Mama Nike if she would come back on camera so I know that she's there, because I want to discuss another aspect of the textile work. There are some very important comments in the chat right now. Some of them aimed, I think, for JBDC, but some of them that perhaps the Edna Manley College could take on in partnership with other institutions or with individuals. And one of them specifically is calling for a project with those persons who are present here in this discussion. And I'm going to quote now: "It would be a shame to let all of these ideas fall like confetti." So I saw Kamau Amen run in the audience earlier. I don't know whether he's still there. Kamau, if you're still there, I know this has been a concern of yours from the day I met you many decades ago, and perhaps you want to make your own contribution to that aspect of it. What kind of project could emerge from this? Perhaps persons in the audience would indicate whether, like Tamar, they would be interested in such a project. People also want to see Mama Nike's outfits, but I'm not seeing her, so I want her to come back, and if the host could spotlight her if she is there. In the meantime, Miriam, what kind of project do you see emerging from the ideas that have come out of these discussions? And someone is positing that it's not just about ready cash, it's about sustainability, viability, and profitability.
Amen. Beautiful. Yes, that was beautifully put. So those three tenets are absolutely necessary. Whatever ideas that we posit to develop, we have to look at it in terms of a business. We have to look at how it's going to be developed, how it's going to be sustained. Is it viable? Is it just a hairy-fairy thought? And what and when will it be profitable? How can we make these things profitable? So like, even though we're talking with it within the context of the textiles and fashion industry and the retention of our traditions, we must always understand that whatever we take on, those are areas that ought to be answered. And so the research and the investigation into the various components must be thoroughly thought out and must be thoroughly investigated. And sometimes you may find that you have an idea and it may be to shift certain components, maybe to tweak another aspect of it. So if you know exactly what your end goal is, if it's not just about money, then I'm certain we need to look at how things can work across time. Most industry takes you on a 15 to 20 year stream to develop, starting from scratch, but then there are projects, shorter aspects of things that can be done. And then you look at how you build on, and I'm going to what is there in the chat, long-term, short-term, medium-term strategies to make things to work to build out the industry. Absolutely. So it's not a dash to the finish, but it is ensuring that all the components are there and the necessary stakeholders are engaged to ensure that whatever is undertaken, whatever is invested in, is maintained and is allowed to grow and be viable.
Is this a gendered gender and economics discussion as well, Miriam? Mama Nike mentioned the fact that part of the outreach, the education program was for women. And it made me wonder the extent to which women are involved and if the involvement of women indicates anything at all about the economic reward. We know that from our history, the professions that women are involved in oftentimes happen to be the ones that are least economically rewarded. And how big a challenge is this for what we might want to see happen?
Well, the thing about it is that what we're talking about, if we're talking from the ground up in a lot of ways, it straddles several industries. You're talking agriculture, you're talking the entire value chain in design and the textiles industry, the craft industry, the tourism sector, etc. So there is an element of gender based or perceived gender-based occupation within the frame of things. But and if you look at players on the output end as it pertains to fashion and textiles, we have a higher involvement of females as key players. Yes, but we also do have strong male representation within the fashion industry. So for me, from where I sit, it is not so much of a gendered thing, except to say that if we're talking, it is also aspects of policy and national development, what it is that we're wanting to support and how do we see that we can support these sectors. So there it takes in pretty much all the players at every tier.
Thank you. I want to lay hands suddenly on another member of the Nigerian Technical Assistance Program to the JBDC, and I'm speaking it slowly, so Allah Lukman will hear that I'm about to lay my hands on him. Good morning. Can you raise your hand so I know that you have heard me? Everyone, please welcome Allah Lukman to the discussion. He has been assigned to the JBDC through the Nigerian Technical Assistance Program since 2018. He's an expert in Batik and some special names attached to jewelry that I have never met before and don't have a clue what is meant by chasing and repousse. Is that how you say it?
Repose.
Repose, the French lady, I should have known. Repose. So this is also a multilingual experience. But he has instructed over 60 Jamaicans in these techniques. And I want to invite you now to share what that experience has been for you and whether it is too early or whether you have already concluded on what is the future of it and where it might take us. Are you there?
Hear me?
Yes.
Hear me? Okay, yes. Yeah, as I said, my name is Layiwola. Yeah, actually, I've been in Jamaica since 2017. So, and my first place of work was the Ministry of Tourism before I moved to JBDC under the Ministry of Commerce, and also work with Ministry of Culture. Yeah, the experience, number one, chasing a repose. Let me quickly give a little light on the shape and this chasing a repose. Just like maybe you can see the one behind me here is one of the good example from the world there. The chasing a repose, they are recycled material where we find here in Jamaica. Those material, they are printing plates used by the gleaner and observer and other commercial printers. So after their primary use, they dispose them. So what we do is we recycle those material for metal work or metal embossing, which could be called the chasing and repose too. And also in textile, we've done quite a number of work on the textile, which is batik, tie-dye batik, in which Mama Nike also addressed the tie-dye batik, and which is using the, basically we use the dye and we use wax to do the design. We carve the wax on the design, we carve the design on the sponge and also use the wax for the resistance to where we don't want the dye to be. Yeah, what I see in the future on the tie-dye batik here in Jamaica, if we can adopt that kind of system we have in Nigeria, where the knowledge is being passed from mother to child, and also goes on like that to generation. That is why in Nigeria we were able to sustain that knowledge. And then also we have quite a number of books in which we're still writing, just like my Mama Nike also mentioned that we have some book, but we still write more book about the history. Because if we don't tell our history, if somebody else came to tell our history, automatically the history will be tampered with. So they might be telling the story of your father in which it doesn't exist. And you yourself would know that, no, this is not how my father is. And with that, and also for this program, and I really thank God that this program is coming on now. For this program, if we can, we try to create a cottage industry where this knowledge could be done even though at your yard and other people can come and learn from you. I believe if it's being passed on and then we're able to do this thing, the knowledge will be able to sustain here in Jamaica. And before we know it, Jamaica will be one of the top in the Caribbean exporting of textile, print, and tie-dye batik, whether using the wax or using the using the cassava resist. And also, the planting of indigo. I believe indigo too can be planted in Jamaica. And then, well, before we know it, we started producing those indigo dye, which we can be using. Yes.
Thank you very much. As we come to the final minutes of this encounter, I want us, thank you so much, to conclude on what is required, and the proposals, the concerns are coming fast and furious from the chat. So one of them is about what resources can be made available to communities now that this interest and this information is out there. Another one is about structuring a for-profit cooperative. So I've missed that, but I think I got the gist of it. A for-profit cooperative, teaching entrepreneurship. Another one is about how we in fact identify and source the material or develop an arm, I'm going to call it retrofitting now, of persons to be able to produce the materials, and for workshops to take place in communities and institutions. I'm going to ask you, Ala, whether you could comment on any of those or add to it, and then I am going to give Miriam the final word unless there are other suggestions coming in. One just came in about the involvement or the need to involve children from as young as the primary school level as well.
Yes, yeah. The last question, truly, and we need to involve the children right from the primary, because right from the primary school, and when I was growing up in Nigeria, yeah, we did some little tie and dye, which you just tied some little handkerchief, and then they will get to, by the time they get to secondary school, which is a high school, we call it secondary school in Nigeria, so high school, and then if you're in arts, then you do some other yardis, and they started teaching you much more technical. And then this thing make us to know, and also with the history, it made us to know who are our predecessors on tie-dye, batik. We know, so you know, when you know the history and we know how it begins, those children to have the knowledge right from their school. Yeah, that is that one. And if that one too can be adapted here in Jamaica, we'll be able to write that history and put it in book, and then during exam, all those questions comes out there, we'll be able to answer them. So that thing always keep into our memory. And also to add up again is the design. Most of the African design, or Nigeria in particular, those design has meaning. Each of those design, symbols, patterns has meaning. So that is why once you see those design or want to see a batik, we'll be able to know that this batik is from Nigeria. Through that design, we know that it's from Nigeria. So those knowledge and then those pattern and motif, yes, we know, we Nigerian, we just grow up with it. So we'll be able to identify them. It's from our country. If that the same, the model could be added into Jamaican right from the primary school. Those children will identify those patterns that we're trying to create, because there are a lot of patterns from Aki, from breadfruit, from so many things, right from the culture, right from the fruit, right from the, which one again, just name it, flower, belts, all those things. Yes, thank you. All those things, we create them and we use them as the motif on the cloth. So automatically, once those children have been taught those patterns and motifs, once they see those cloth, they know that this is Jamaican, not Africa. Oh, just like this, another very good example is the kente from Ghana. Mere seeing the design of the kente and the color, if you see it, you know that this is from Ghana. So all those things, if I believe if we try to put those things together just the way it is in an African country or some Africa that I recognize, well, that's just the same thing in Jamaica. Yeah, we go a very long way.
Thank you.
And again,
thank you very much for both of those reminders that there is no such thing as African cloth. there are 54 countries. And they all have their own designs and their own patterns, and each pattern and design means something. And you mentioned the kente, and I remember how fascinated I was when I learned that we could find the love story of Nkrumah and Fatima in the design of her wedding dress. So that itself is a historical document. I also hear you calling for a researcher or a research grant. I don't know where JBDC is going to find the money for someone to document all of this in ways that our children can learn. We can apply the same thing to Jamaica. I know someone identified herself earlier as coming from Trelawney, the Yam Parish, and St. Thomas, the Mango Parish, and St. Mary, the Banana Parish. So in the same way that there are different designs from all across the continent, there could be different designs in Jamaica that represent the culture and the history and the evolution and the lifestyle of each of the parishes, or even unique places in individual parishes. Miriam,
Yes,
what
right
is your dream coming out of this?
Oh my gosh, you had to ask that. Anybody who knows me knows that for me, the development of the textile industry is near and dear to my heart. Having had the exposure in other spaces and looking at how they have moved ahead with a very focused, a laser focus approach to development. Yeah, it is heavy on me that we still cannot see that we need to put the effort in, pace ourselves, pull our people in. The public campaigns, the schools, etc. It starts from the very beginning. It starts from the very first level, primary school. We need to stop the nonsense of undercutting budgets within these spaces to allow the students to be able to explore textiles, explore batik, explore printing, and for the teachers within this space to also be given the information of our heritage, yes, to use the cassava as a component to the cloth resist that we have learned coming up, right? To understand how we then utilize. If you look across even our metal work, Amina, you will see reflections of a lot of what is the Adinkra symbols. But then there's also too the way we layer that with what is our essence as a people, and how we reference that across using colors, using techniques of applique. Applique had a very strong history in Jamaica, predating the 1940s, 1930s. You don't find young people using those approaches to design and fabric adornment, but it does have its place, and there's so many facets to which we can really emphasize who we are as a people, identify ourselves, recognize our culture, recognize our mixed heritage, and put that in a place that is sophisticatedly presented, yeah, that is packaged, that is really reflecting of who we are as a people. And so I do believe that if we need to develop, we need to get to the grassroots level of seriousness, yeah, and we need to invest in our young people. We have too many unattached young people who really have never been introduced to these things, yeah. And these are, yes, there's animation, which is an industry that we're pushing, but then you're also looking at something that can happen within your own kitchen, yeah, that can happen in your own backyard. So how do we get to the grassroots of enabling individuals to recognize themselves in the cloth that they create, yeah, and see this as a viable output on the stage of a global stage of fashion and textiles and accessories.
Thank you very much for that, Miriam. I'm going to ask Sanchia and or Colleen to stand by to help me with the sign off. And when I get to that point, you will see why I need you to help me with the sign off. Because you and I and Allah seem to love food so much, then all the examples we have given of what could be on the fabric have been food-based and kitchen-based. Did you notice that? But there are also suggestions coming from the chat about our maroon heritage, about the cockpit country,
Exactly.
about what's going on there.
Exactly.
Putting in my head.
Those are narratives that we can depict on fabric.
Right.
Yeah. They're, I mean, right now, if we want to use high-end technology, we can create the illustration and print it digitally on fabric. Yes. There's so many ways to go about it and so many resources. I see Neela Stewart saying the Taino symbols. Yes. And that, if you're going real deep, those predate the arrivals of our ancestors. And so we need to call on all of these resources, develop these image banks, develop these references, write the books, put them into chapters, put them into categories, and let us move this forward. Yes, exactly. Sorry, the chat is distracting me.
Yes, I know, me too.
But this gets me excited. When I start talking textiles, it gets me absolutely excited. And so I believe that listen, when they say we're sitting in a gold mine, Jamaica doesn't even begin to understand what that means.
And gold in other ways too, for the development of the human resources.
Absolutely.
Because not only would we be beautifully dressed and telling our story to the world, but what would happen when a child asks, what is the meaning of this symbol?
What is the meaning?
Then what we're wearing becomes part of the public education program.
Absolutely.
About who we are and what we have to defend.
And it grounds you and give you ownership and identity. So you're not necessarily looking outward to understand who you are. You're looking within to understand who you are. And
Aloha
so
wants to come in.
Yes, Aloha.
Yes,
go ahead.
That is very true. You know, and if this is added to the curriculum in the school, the children will be able to know right from small those design. What is the meaning of this design? What is this design? What does this design symbolize? We have the Rastafarian design. Once you see it, the way it comes, fine. We have a particular a similar design with Africans. The Jamaican have some similar, because once you see some of the design both on the notes, that is the currency, and you see the flower and so many things. When I check it, when I make some research and I check all those things, we have so many similar design. Fine. At the end of the day, it might mean something here or here in Jamaica, why another different thing there in the African country or Nigeria or Ghana. But at the same time, it still connects what we are trying to pass to the younger ones. So, and also what we are trying to pass as Jamaican identity. Yes.
Thank you very much. I hope that we have also been able to save the comments from the chat. Colin and Sanchia, I've managed to take down some of the proposals, which I will hand over to you. What a brand new big arena the JBDC is stepping out into, which is why I now need you to help me sign off, because many of the comments in the last 5 or so minutes have been saying, how do we continue this discussion? And so I want to invite one or both of you to tell us about the remaining activities for this Festival of the Cloth and how other people may become involved in the ongoing conversations and the unfolding of what I'm sure will come out of this. It has been my absolute delight. Indeed. I have been so uplifted and empowered to be a part of this discussion that I want to thank JBDC for getting me involved in yet another of their projects, and to offer my sincere thanks on behalf of the JBDC to the panelists, especially to Mama Nike who somehow got kicked off the platform, to Professor Peju, who had another engagement, but who gave us of her time, to you, my colleague, Miriam, for all the things you told me about the Edna Manley College and the Visual and Performing Arts, and teaching me new words like textile and so on and so forth, and to thank those persons who joined us and were able to stay with us and to share with us and to enrich the discussions through the chat. Would you please hang on while either Sanchia or Colin Porter comes along to tell us what next for
If
the
I
festival
may,
of the
I'd just
cloth.
like to add my own thanks to the JBDC for arranging this. I think it is timely. I think it is right now absolutely necessary and needed. And I think they are poised to create that tipping point for us to really move along with this. And I'm looking forward to being involved in any other aspects of not only a conversation, but a movement, if you will, in this enhancement of our textiles, fiber arts, and design industry.
Bless you, Miriam.
Thank you. Thank you again for moderating so beautifully, Amina. It really was absolutely beautiful. Thank you.
Thank you. Colin, is it going to be you?
Well, you know, I are the one. Yes, I mean, what an exciting morning. Aloha is just over the moon because we have been working at this along with the team for the last 3 years, and we have just reached to this phase 2 point, and I know Aloha is just totally blown away. But I want to also thank my moderator, storyteller, for weaving such a fabulous fabric this morning. I mean, dreaming for us is not idle. Dreaming is about seeing new possibilities. And Mama Nikki spoke about nature and planting the seed. And I mean, we have a whole crop coming up from the discussion this morning. I'm hearing research, I'm hearing ecosystem, a program for enriching the ecosystem, making sure that sustainability, which is a big thing for JBDC, continues. I'm seeing the involvement of all the institutions of learning, getting to the communities, and we have done some work. Aloha has led work in Port Royal, for instance, just doing all the things we have been speaking about, and the output from that community is just blown away, blowing all us away. So the weaving has started, and JBDC, rest assured to all the participants this morning, that we are moving not with a project, we're moving with a program, which, as Miriam says, will take time in its fulfillment. But within that big program, we'll have the projects. So we have milestones we are going to have to achieve. We work for Jamaica, so we're working back with agriculture at the base for much of the material that we have been speaking about. And we want to work with Edna, Manley, with other universities in terms of the research and the documentation. Yes, we celebrate the oral tradition, but definitely the documentation is key for sustainability. So we are on track with that. People know that, I mean, for me, retention and so on is key, like Amina. And I must tell you, when I have on my Jamaican designs that include our retention of the history from the motherland, I feel absolutely beautiful. I don't really care if anybody else thinks it's beautiful, because I certainly feel super beautiful in the kind of spirit that it brings with it. And I think we have stimulated something in this conversation. And believe me, we are committed here at JBDC, and we're going to be dreaming along with all of you. But dreaming from us is not falling asleep. Dreaming from us is an activity that speaks about possibilities, renewal, building newness, moving the horizon forward. So guess what? We're looking forward to the second conversation, where we're going to be focusing a lot on this development of the Jamaican brand. So we're taking techniques from Nigeria and other countries, but we're doing the designs from our own spiritual development here in Jamaica. And that is what is going to be focus of the second conversation. The third is now the nuts and bolts, where we're talking about aspects of the ecosystem, funding. You can't do anything without money. So we need funding to be there for the developmental work, but also for the building of the entrepreneurial aspect of it. So that has to be part of what we're going to be talking about. We have to talk about intellectual property and how we help our entrepreneurs and designers to protect their intellectual property. How we ensure that there is policy, a policy framework that encircles and embraces what we're talking about, so that we don't lose out to our intellectual property being utilized elsewhere as if it didn't come from here. So we're going to get down to those basic activities in the third conversation. So that would be our 3 conversations. But guess what? It's also the start of pushing the frontier a little further. So phase 3, we have to lead into a phase 4. And this is what we as a group, including all the participants today, so we want to hear from you. All along, please send in your suggestions, ask questions. It doesn't stop when we close out Zoom, so that we can together build Jamaica and really make this a big and important program that includes from the micro to the small to the medium. Everybody has to be part of this process, and we are 100% committed to it. And thank you all the participants, all the panelists. What a rich weaving went on today. And I'm just anxious and waiting for conversation 2, and hope we see you all again, but also that we see additional folks joining in our conversation. So have a fantastic rest of the day. My head is clicking. And I know as I have lunch, I'm going to be seeing designs in the lunch. So it's a big thing going on for me moving forward. So thank you all so much for being part of this process this morning.
Walk good, everyone.
Good topic, how are you?
All right, and just a reminder to everyone that the recordings will be available on the JBDC YouTube page at JBDC Jamaica. So you can log on at some point, maybe by the end of the week or the start of next week. You'll be able to see this conversation so that you can remind yourself or share with someone who did not get an opportunity to view today's presentation as we move into next Wednesday's second presentation. Have a great day, everyone.
And you too, and good dopey walk with you. Thanks for that reminder.